What's going on, everybody? Welcome back here to the Justin Dietrich channel with another college football weekly preview. Week 10, we're going to be previewing. But as always, before we get started, we're going to go through and look at last week's games. If you guys enjoy these weekly previews, you're going to want to turn on those post notifications when you subscribe so you don't miss them. We do weekly these videos as well as other videos. NFL draft, that content is starting to ramp up, so you're not going to want to miss any. As well as leave comments down below if you agree with anything I say or disagree with anything I say or have your own things. I read all the comments I get. So to go over week 9 a little bit, starting here, if you guys wonder why I'm looking down so much, I have my phone. Pitt and Syracuse was a big one, right? 5-1 Syracuse, undefeated Pitt. A lot of people thought this could be a close game, and it wasn't. Pitt won 41-13. Kyle McCord had one of the worst quarterback nights I think I've seen ever. I mean, is it crazy to say that? Let's take a look at these stats here for the load. McCord threw 5 interceptions, threw 64 total passes, and let's see, 2 of them were pick sixes. 3 of them were pick sixes. So not a good night at all for Kyle McCord and the Syracuse Orange, but Pitt stays undefeated, stays rolling, and they're making a potential case to be the ACC championship game and maybe even the college football playoffs. Continuing to scroll, we saw on Friday night Rutgers and USC. That was interesting. It was an 11 p.m. Eastern kickoff. This is what new college football has come to. You have Rutgers USC at 11 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. What are we doing, guys? Also that night, Louisville came back from being in a deficit to Boston College, as well as the big one, Boise State and UNLV. UNLV lost 24-29, Boise State. GT had an off game, which, again, an off game for him is 130 yards and a touchdown on the ground alone, not receiving. It's crazy that his off game is some players' best games, right? The people that are saying this knocks him out of Heisman are ridiculous. GT is still number 1 easily in the Heisman race. And Boise State is still number 1 as far as Group of 5 goes. We'll talk about another Group of 5 team that was in the playoff conversations that lost this week. Right now it's Boise State. I mean, they're far and ahead that number 1 right now. And there's a few, I mean, I probably 1 or 2 other teams who could take that from them, right? If Boise were to drop. But for now, they're in the lead. Continuing to look at Saturday, Texas A&M and LSU. This one disappointed me, of course, as a LSU fan. But what can you do? Texas A&M made the quarterback switch to Marcel Reed, and that really confused the Tigers' defense, and they weren't able to get stops. And Garrett Nussmeier just did not look good at all, and of course, Kyle Field is a tough place to play. So the Tigers are not able to come away with the win in that one, leaving Texas A&M as the only undefeated team in SEC conference play, which is kind of interesting. Cincinnati, Colorado, I didn't stay up for the full game. I stayed up for halftime. I got pretty tired. It was a pretty late kickoff for us in Eastern time. But Colorado ended up taking that one 34-23. Ohio State, Nebraska, a noon scare for the Buckeyes. Nebraska almost came away with the win. Ohio State won 21-17, but it was really, really close. And Ohio State 100% could have lost this game. And honestly, it kind of seemed at points like they were trying to lose the game. I mean, they weren't playing very good football, which isn't good news for them going into who they have to play this upcoming week, which we'll talk about. Notre Dame and Navy. This is the Group of 5 team that was potentially in playoff conversations who lost. And they didn't just lose. Notre Dame embarrassed them, 51-14. Navy they just couldn't keep up. And ever since that NIU loss, Notre Dame has really, really been on point as a team. It kind of woke them up. Indiana and Washington. Indiana got their college game day, which was fun. No Curtis Rourke, no problem. 31-17 win versus Washington. Of course, they're a much better football team with Curtis Rourke. But as long as Rourke can get back healthy for some of these big games, they have Ohio State in a couple weeks. And maybe if they go undefeated in conference play, the Big Ten championship, right? So Indiana just has to keep winning games at this point. So all you got to do, you got to win the ones you're supposed to, and then upset Ohio State, and you're in the college football playoffs. Ole Miss handled Oklahoma, not very well, but they handled them. Continuing to scroll and take a look, we see Oregon and Illinois. Illinois didn't really stand much of a chance in Autzen Stadium, 38-9. BYU stays undefeated with a win over UCF. Alabama gets themselves back on track with a blowout 34-0 of Missouri. Taking a look, Bowling Green won the Battle of I-75 against Toledo. Shout out the Falcons. Texas barely came away with a win at Vandy. I think people are really starting to... You didn't believe after that Alabama game. Vandy is a tough football team. They almost took down Texas as well in Vandy. Only 3 points, and Vandy really had a chance to come away with that win too. They're a really good team, and I'm kind of upset, even though I know they lost, I'm kind of upset that they were dropped out of the rankings this week because I think we can pretty confidently say even with their record, they're one of the top 25 teams this year. Um, Florida State, Miami wasn't even a contest. Houston keeps embarrassing Utah. I mean, Utah is just man, the fall off is ridiculous for them this year. Houston gets away with the win. Michigan State beats Michigan, or Michigan State loses to Michigan in the rivalry. Penn State comes in and beats Wisconsin in Camp Randall. Of course, Drew Aller went down. Will he be healthy for this upcoming game? I don't know. It's Bo Pribula, however you say it. Came in and looked pretty good for Penn State, but obviously they're a better team with Drew Aller. Kansas State beat Kansas in a rivalry game. SMU stays undefeated with a 1 point overtime win over Duke. Of course, Duke was 6-1. SMU was undefeated coming in this. So this was like, or SMU was one loss, and Duke was 6-1. They were both one loss. And this was a good game, right? I think a lot of people overlooked this, right? Now, SMU. I mean, how were they ranked? And then Duke 6-1. Is it like a real 6-1? But it was a really good game. And then the rest of the night, Washington State stays one loss with San Diego State win. And that pretty much did the Saturday of games. Not the greatest Saturday of games, I will say, but a few scares for some teams and a few top games. Moving ahead to week 10 here, take a look at the games going on tonight. Liberty, Jacksonville State, and Kennesaw State and Western Kentucky. Thursday, we've got one game, just Tulane and Charlotte. And Friday, we've got a couple. South Florida, FAU, Georgia State, UConn, and then we have San Diego State versus Boise State. So GT plays on Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so a little bit earlier if you're going to be watching. Of course, I will be watching because it's Ash and GT, and it is peak. On Saturday, there's some big games, right? We'll talk about, the noon slate is stacked now that I'm just looking at this. Okay, we got a lot to talk about. Duke and Miami. Obviously, I think Miami's going to win this game. They're hosting, but Duke is 6-2, and don't sleep on them as potential trap game. We saw Virginia Tech came into Miami earlier and was one of those almost trap games. So don't sleep on Duke, but Miami probably comes away with the win. Arkansas hosting Ole Miss. Arkansas upset Tennessee when they hosted them earlier this year, so our Ole Miss isn't out of the range of potentially being another upset for Arkansas. Army Air Force. Mentioned the rivalries between the service academies. Of course, Army 7-0 in hosting. They will probably win. Minnesota, Illinois, 5-3 Minnesota, 6-2 ranked Illinois. It's a pretty good game between two solid Big Ten teams. Of course, I'm saving the big noon game for last. Syracuse, VT, just a solid matchup in the ACC. And then we'll talk about this one, right? Ohio State versus Penn State. Ohio State barely escaped with a win over Nebraska. They're 6-1. Penn State is 7-0. This is 3 versus 4. Of course, playing in Happy Valley is one of, if not the toughest places in college football. It's like Kyle Field, Happy Valley, Bryant-Denny, Tiger Stadium, right? It is maybe the best when it is the best when it's in its whiteout at a night. This is at noon, which is pretty disappointing. I was hoping we'd get a whiteout at night, but hey, I don't choose the game times. Is Drew Aller going to be fully healthy and back for that game? Can Ohio State pick their offense back up after a tough outing versus Nebraska? And can they deal with the crowd, right? The last time that they were on a big road environment was Oregon, and they played well, but they lost, right? And Penn State, they want this one after the 12-team playoff and the potential to make the college football playoffs and the Big Ten championship game. They want this one bad. And hosting is going to help them a lot. In my personal opinion, I think this will be a close one. I don't think either team runs away with it. You might say this is recency bias based off how Ohio State looked versus Nebraska, but I've been saying going into the season, I think Penn State, this is their year to finally win it. And I do think they take down the Buckeyes by a field goal in Happy Valley. Could happen. Could not happen. You never know. We'll keep looking at these games. Oregon heads to the Big House to face Michigan. Without a passing game, Michigan won't win that. Florida, Georgia at 3:30 and ABC is kind of wild. Texas Tech, Iowa State. Can Iowa State stay undefeated against a high-powered Texas Tech offense? Indiana, they got to go to East Lansing and Michigan State this week, and they stay undefeated. And can Curtis Rourke come back? That's the question. Let's see. That would have been a good matchup preseason, Arizona and UCF. Not anymore. Texas A&M heads to South Carolina. It's a tough environment, right? They almost took down LSU, and I know they almost beat Bama in Bama a couple weeks ago. It's a tough environment. Don't overlook that if you're an Aggies fan. Louisville travels to Clemson. Clemson, they're back up to number 11 in the country, 6-1, just that one loss at the beginning of the season. And Louisville 5-3. They've looked okay. Obviously, they came back that last week against Boston College, and then before that, they had that tough game against Miami. But don't overlook this if you're a Clemson Tigers fan. Louisville's a good team. However, I think you can go into that feeling pretty confident you're going to come away with the win. Wisconsin and Iowa, battle of three or a battle of 5-3, classic Big Ten teams. Tennessee, Kentucky, later in the day. I mean, rival, but like Tennessee's going to win. Pitt and SMU. This is huge for the ACC. Huge for the ACC. 7-0 Pitt, ranked 18, going to 7-1, 20 SMU. SMU's home field advantage is awful, right? It's going to be full of Pitt fans as long as they travel. And if Pitt wins this, they're probably propelling themselves into the top 15 of the rankings because you get your win over a ranked team. And they're sitting solely with Miami for that conference championship game. Then, because Clemson has to play Miami. So this actually puts Pitt in a very good situation for the college football playoff and the championship game. SMU, if they win, puts them in a very good situation. We'll take a look at these schedules here. So SMU for the rest of the season has Pitt, Boston College, Virginia, and Cal. They should win those last three. As long as they beat Pitt, they're going one loss. Pitt, however, has SMU, Virginia, Louisville, Boston College, and Clemson. They host Clemson, which I don't know how much of a difference that makes, but they host Clemson. One of those two teams has to lose, which puts SMU in a good spot as long as they win this game against Pitt. If Pitt wins this game and then goes on to beat Clemson, it kind of becomes a little bit of a mess, right? But this is monumental for the ACC this year, right? And then one of the new ACC members in SMU. Again, they really just come into the conference and dominate and show, hey, we got an undefeated Pitt. Who cares? We're gonna beat them. We're gonna stay one loss and undefeated in conference play and hopefully get that college football playoff. So if you're an SMU fan, feel pretty good about this one. I think who would I take in this one? I saw Pitt play live. Of course, they came to Nippert Stadium here in Cincinnati and beat us. I wasn't fully impressed with them. Wasn't fully impressed with us either. I think I would probably take SMU in this one, in a close one. SMU's been playing a lot of close games, so they know what it's like. They know how to come out with those close wins and play in crunch time. And I think they'll do it again this week and take that one. That's going to be it for this video. If you guys agree or disagree with any of my picks, any of my takes, have anything random to say, put them in the comments down below. I'll read all of them. Of course, you're going to want to subscribe and turn on those notifications so that you don't miss any of these weekly videos along with the other ones, as well as leave a like because likes mean that YouTube suggests the video more, and then it gets out there more and more outreach and more stuff for you guys as well. But with that, I'll leave you all off, and I'll see you all in the next video.